It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we've got two movies to look at today on March 9th, 2007. One big blockbuster, and the other kind of was a little underrated back then, but considering who directed it, you should probably know what it is by this point. But we'll get to that one in a little bit, but let's go ahead and start off with the biggest new release of the weekend. This is Sparta. Might as well make that joke right now. But no, this actually is Zack Snyder's 300. I mean, if we're being honest, the trailer pretty much has all the most memorable quotes from this movie. This is, of course, based off of the comic book series by the same name by Frank Miller and Lynn Varley. And in this movie, like the books, it's fictionalized retelling of the Battle of Thermopylae in the Greco-Persian War. The plot revolves around King Leonidas, played by Gerard Butler, who leads 300 Spartans into battle against the Persian god king Xerxes, played by Rodrigo Santoro, and his invading army of more than 300,000 soldiers. As the battle wages on, Queen Gorgo, played by Lena Headey, attempts to rally support in Sparta for her husband. And this also features Michael Fassbender in his feature film debut. I mean, this is probably Zack Snyder's, one of his more popular movies in general, and just the fact that just the quotes alone, the characters, the story arc, the visuals. It's a really good movie, man, and yeah, it's been criticized mostly for its historical inaccuracies, but then again, there are a lot of movies out there that have a lot of historical inaccuracies, but people are willing to buy that. But I digress. It was also criticized for its depiction of the Persians in this, which again, it's a comic book movie. This is one of those times where I would say it's kind of okay to do that. I mean, you're not going into 300 looking for accuracy. You're going in there to see some beautiful looking visuals, some over-the-top gory action, some memorable lines that are still very much quoted to this very day, and just a good fun time overall. And this is a good fun time overall. It's a very over-the-top movie, performance-wise, but you know, it has a lot of memorable moments to it that just really stick out, even after all these years later. And it shows what Zack Snyder's capabilities are as a director. I mean, he's got a lot of, he has a lot of visual flair that he shows in these movies. And this was one of those movies that made people realize, hey, this guy's actually really damn good as a director. Of course, most of his movies nowadays are nowhere near as good as some of his earlier works. I mean, I think Sucker Punch kind of was the first one to really make you realize, wow, this guy has lost a lot of it, what made him so great in the first place beforehand. But back then, this was still what made it work overall. Gerard Butler does show a lot of acting charisma. He works very well as King Leonidas. And it really makes you think about what could have been if he had just gotten some better movie roles besides some of the ones that he's gotten as of late. Mostly just in lackluster action movies, let's be quite honest. I mean, Olympus Has Fallen was pretty good, but, and of course he was in How to Train Your Dragon. But, yeah, a lot of the movies he made after this, where his name started to take off, have not been as good as this performance really should show. Of course, Lena Headey would go on to star in Game of Thrones, playing pretty badass antagonist in that show. Rodrigo Santoro's over the top and fun in this. Michael Fassbender, of course, this is his first movie. Dominic West is in here. David Wenham. A good cast overall. A good visual flair. What more can you really ask for with a movie like this? It's a Frank Miller story, for God's sakes. I mean, Frank Miller's stuff isn't the best creative story-wise in terms of movies. I mean, this is the guy that made RoboCop 3, for God's sakes, and The Spirit. But, yeah, this is a really good movie. A fantastic film. Mostly on the visuals, mostly on the characters, mostly on the memorable lines. It's a good, fun movie overall. I really like it a lot. Yeah, if you're going in this expecting a historically accurate storyline here, then you clearly are not the right audience for this particular movie. So, yeah. This is a really good movie. I like it a lot. Probably one of Zack Snyder's best films overall. No question about it. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the lesser film that came out this weekend, which is Bong Joon-ho's The Host. Of course, Bong Joon-ho would later go on to direct movies like Snowpiercer and Parasite, which Parasite, of course, went on to win Best Picture in 2019. So yeah, this is the first movie where people were really introduced to this director as a whole, and not a bad movie to start him off on. It's a movie about a vendor whose daughter is kidnapped by a creature dwelling along the Han River, and the storyline is that you have this family that also plays a part in this, and it is not just a simple monster movie. That's what I really like about this movie, is that it's not just a simple monster movie. It's a monster movie that has a little bit more of a flair to it. It has more comedy to it than you would expect. A little more dramatic elements to it. Kind of a precursor to what Godzilla -1 would eventually become, that came out last year. And 2023, I should say, when I'm recording this, not 2006, I should say. But yeah, this is a really good movie, and it actually had a lot more relevance than you would think compared to what it had back then, because when the COVID pandemic came out, this movie got a little bit of a cultural reevaluation to itself. I would rather see people watch this movie more than watch that terrible Steven Soderbergh movie Contagion, which everyone started watching back then too. Like, let's watch this movie let's watch this bland movie with all these big stars in here, even though it's a great director. Yeah, bottom line, I really don't like Contagion, but that's a completely different thing altogether. The actors in here are really good. I like the fact that it isn't just a typical monster movie. It takes more chances with it. It's much more funnier, much more creative in its scares, and it has a little bit of an emotional flair to it. It's a really good film, and it definitely shows what this director in particular would eventually go on to become more well-known for, with stuff like Snowpiercer and Parasite, and his upcoming film, Mickey 17. Overall, I really like it a lot. It's a film that I think a lot of people, if you haven't seen this movie, but you've seen this director's other works, you definitely should check this one out, because it definitely fits right up there with some of his best works overall. It's a very underrated film, and one I definitely recommend checking out, The Host. And so, with all of that said, we're going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Now, the next time we meet, we've got 3 more movies, including Sandra Bullock starring in the time travel thriller Premonition with Julie McMahon from Nip Tuck. We also have James Wan's Dead Silence. Of course, James Wan is the director of Saw. And Chris Rock directing a movie where he's caught in a love triangle between Kerry Washington and also Gina Torres, I Think I Love My Wife. So we'll take a look at all 3 of those movies. That'll be coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, and hit that bell because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we do post here every day. With all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.